This lesson deals with how your final grade is determined. ECE 345 has two parts, a lecture part and a lab part. The lecture part is worth 2/3 of your final grade, and the lab part is worth 1/3 of your final grade. Let me first explain how your lecture grade is determined. I actually do it 3 different ways, and you get the best of the 3. For each of the hour exams, you receive the grade between 0 and 5. Same is true for your homework, and likewise will be for the final. If you look at the syllabus for the course, the exams counted for 200 points out of 450 possible points. This is dropping one of the 3 1-hour exams. So of your 3 exams, I'll take your best score on a 0 to 5 point scale and multiply that by the weight, which would be 100 out of 450 possible points. Do the second best exam again between 0 and 5 and multiply that by the weight. This is assuming I'm going to drop your worst test on the 0 to 5 point scale. Do the same thing for the homework, but its weight was 50 out of the 450 points. And then lastly, the final is going to be worth 200 out of 450 points. And that's how I determine your grade. This is normally how you'll get probably the best grade you're going to receive. But there's 2 other possibilities. One is your homework grade is not all that great. So dropping one of the 3-hour exams can actually lower your grade. So go back and I recompute your grade, but not dropping one of the hour exams. Now the total points are 550. First exam, second exam, third exam on a 0 to 5 point scale. Multiply by now the weight of 100 out of 550. Homework now is 50 out of 550. And likewise, the final is 200 out of 550. So we're kind of de-weighting the homework and the final a little bit by including all of your exams. And for some people, this will actually give them a better grade. Then there's one last thing I'd like to offer the class, and that is a bonus. If you can score the highest on the final exam, you'll get a 5. So the number that would go here, or in this case here, would be a 5. And for many people, that would give them a better grade. There are some people with a 5 average. But I'll also offer this to anyone getting a 95% or more on the final exam. So really anybody in class could get that score. If you do get the highest score on the final, or 95% or higher, this number here will be most likely better. But what I'll do is add a 0.5 to your final score. So whatever this turned out to be here, or here, I'll take that score and add 0.5 to it. So in other words, if you had your exams and your homework, and it turned out that was a 3.6, but you had 95% on the final or higher, you're going to have a pretty high number here, close to 5, I would then take this number and add 0.5 to it. So if this was 3.6 and I added 0.5, you get a 4.1. Let's next take a look at how your lab grade is determined. In the syllabus, it says that your lab reports will count for 60% of your grade, and that a lab exam will count for 40% of your grade. Now in the lab reports, we're including the report itself and the quiz, and I'll take the lowest score that you have and drop that. I'll take your 8 best lab scores. Now we have more than one section of the lab, and we have different quizzes, and so the grading is not going to be exactly the same. One way to equalize that is to take the average lab report in each section and multiply it by a scale factor to make all sections have about the same average. I will then take your scaled lab report and divide it by the total number of possible points, which would be 8 experiments at 60 points apiece, which are 480, and then multiply that by the weighting of the 60%. I'll then take the lab exam, which will be a 100-point exam, and multiply that by 0.4. That'll give me a score on a 100-point scale. I will then curve this and put it onto a 5-point scale like I have done for the exams in the course. And then lastly, how is your final grade determined? Take the lecture score that you have between 0 and 5 and multiply it by the weight of 2 credits out of 3, and the lab score, which is worth 1 credit out of 3. So you'll get a number between 0 and 5 for your final grade. I don't do much rounding, so what I do is 0.05 from each border. In other words, if you have a 3.95 or higher, you get a 4 point. If you have a 3.45 or higher, you get a 3.5, and so on down the line. And this is how your final grade is determined.